Hi, and welcome to Darlene's Creative Studio. Today is day 10 of our Creative Journal Prompt Challenge. Today I'm going to be working on just a couple of little things. So what I did was I chose a couple of smaller prompts, and I'm going to work on those to decorate the outsides of the binder journal, and then perhaps move into some tea staining and some bigger projects tomorrow. I just was working on this last night and I thought I should be recording this when I was playing around with it. So I thought I would just quickly do a couple of smaller things. So for day 10, I'm going to add some eyelets. I'm going to punch one here and in the back for a closure, and I think I'm going to try and put one in the spine of the binder. So I'm going to have to take out the binder clip, put the eyelet in, and then put the binder clip back in. And I'm going to have to punch these eyelets outside on the balcony because I don't want to do them inside on the hard table because I'm punching through chipboard. So I'm just going to be using this leather punch. It's a metal one, and I'm going through the chipboard. So I'm going to be putting it there and then putting my cutting mat underneath this and then hammering the hole. And once I get the holes in, I'll bring them back in and show you, and I'll put the eyelets in, and then I'll pause it and I'll have to go back out on the balcony and hammer the eyelets in, just because the balcony is cement and I don't want to hit anything in here. So I'm going to be adding some eyelets to my work, and I believe I'm going to use the black ones so they'll kind of disappear a little bit into the fabric. The other thing I'm going to be working, I don't have sari ribbon, but I do have this muslin, and I'm going to use this for a tie. I think I mentioned this in my video yesterday. I'm going to use 2 pieces and put them through the eyelets, and then that will be my tie. We'll be using those as ties. So I'm going to tear those up and add those into the eyelets. So I will be using my sari ribbon. Add some lace. I think I'm going to try and put a little piece of tea stained cotton across the top here, and then perhaps add some lace on top of that for just a little decorative piece there. So we're perhaps going to add some of this lace here. And then last night, again, I was playing and I should have been recording it. I've added 3 buttons here, and then when I put the lace across the top, I may add another button on top of the lace. So that will be my add a button or 2 prompt as well. So I'm probably going to do all 3 or 4 of these prompts in this particular video. So I will put those inside my little book. I will distress the cards and add them in a second. I'm just going to clear all this stuff away and then we'll get started. All right, let's just distress our cards really quickly here and get them into our book. And these are all going to be done today. I may use these prompts later on because they're just smaller prompts. But if I'm going to do them all today, I'm going to put them all in the book. You can always go back and reuse a prompt when you're trying something else. Like if I'm making a journaling card, you may want to add some lace to a journaling card. You can do all those later, but I'm going to add these all into one day because I'm going to be working on them all in one day. And once I get these in, I will take my binder outside. Oops, I need that open. And I will hopefully be able to punch some holes into my binder. It's fairly thick, so I'm hoping it's not going to be too hard for me to do. One. And then my 0. There we go. And then our wreath. And we'll just go ahead and pop that on real quick. There we go. And we'll set that aside. Let's get these in our little book here. Just going to set that right there like that. Put that on that side. Let's get our glue here. And let's start with these. I'll just add these in. these in there, and then I'll write on the backs really quickly as to what I'm doing or where they're going. All right, let's put that guy in there. Straighten him out a little bit. Come on. There we go. Okay, so number one, add some eyelets. Adding eyelets to front and back covers for closures and to spine for a dangle. And that's January the 10th, 2020. Add a few buttons, not bottoms, buttons, to the front cover, January 10th, 2020. And this one is add fabric tie closures, January 10th, 2020. And this one was the this one was the lace. Add some lace to front cover. January 10th, 2020. There we go. So that is done, and we'll get that out of the way. Put that back over here. Marker away. Okay, so I'm going to move my distressing stuff. I'm going to take my punch and my binder. First, let's take the binder clip out. I'll take all these little bits and pieces out of it. Set those aside. Oops, missed one. And close it. And we're going to take the binding clip out. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to put an eyelet up at the top, and in order to get at it, I want to be able to remove this. But what I'm going to do is take my marker, and I'm just going to mark where I've got room to add the eyelet. So I know when I take this off, I've got room right there. So I'm going to take this outside, and I'm just going to put my punch down with the cutting mat underneath and give it a couple of hammers, and it should just punch right through all the layers. And then I'm going to do the same thing for one here and one here, and I'm just going to do it in the middle, and then I will come back and put some eyelets in. Okay, so I've used my little punch here, and I started the hole with that and my hammer. And then I used my leather punch, which I've used before, and it just, when you push down on it, it rotates and cuts really well. So I've gone ahead and put a hole in the top. My binder's upside down. And then I've added a hole on the front and the back as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and add these little eyelets. And I'm just going to hammer them in and use my little punch tool here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off and do that, and then I will show you when I'm done. Okay, so I have inserted the eyelet. Let me just back my camera up here. I've inserted the eyelet in the back, or in the front of the spine, and then it's just barely coming through. So I'm taking my needle nose pliers and I'm just pushing down around the eyelet, like so, just to get the fabric down and the chipboard down. And then I'm just going to use my little punch here, and I'm going to set that in there, and I'm going to punch it. And this is how it came out. It worked out really well. It came out nice and perfectly. I didn't have to use the extra little rings. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this little guy with my hammer. And there we go. We've got our little eyelet on the front. We'll flip this over. We've got an eyelet on the back. And that's going to be for my closures. And then on the spine, sorry, on the spine here, I've added another one here, and I can maybe put a little pin with a dangly here, a little hook. So those are all in, and we're going to move back inside and keep working. So we have our eyelets in, and I'm going to go ahead and put my binder back in, my binder clippings back in, because I don't need to get at that specific hole for the dangly bit yet. So we're going to go ahead and put that in really quickly. And I just like to put everything back so I don't lose the screws. And we'll just tighten them a bit. There we go. So that is now back together. And we have our little eyelets punched in the front and the back. So I'm going to go ahead and use this fabric. And I'm going to cut some little strips out of this for the closure. And I did tear one before, and I might use 2 new ones just because this one had a little bit of a lopsided. Let's see, one there and say one there. Okay, so let's just tear these. There's one, and there's 2, so we can get that out of the way. And we're just going to pull all the little strings off the side. Make sure they're all pulled off. And then there's always some loose ones at the bottom. So there's one. And then this one had a little bit of a cut in it, so I didn't want to use that one in case it broke when I was tying it. So I'll pull that one off. So there are our 2 ties. And I'm just going to fold these in half. And then in half again. And I'm going to try and poke it through this little eyelet here. See if it will come through. It might be a little bit too much fabric for this thing. So I'm just going to get my awl and oops, poke it through. Oops, it slid out of my hand. Let's try that again. There we go. It's going to give me a hard time because it's so thick. There we go. All right, so we've got that pulled through. And then I'm just going to keep this loop sticking out, and I'm going to put the tails through the loop and pull nice and tight. Pull on it if I can. There we go. So there's my first tie. I'm going to go ahead and put the back one in. Find my center. Fold it up. And get my awl and just kind of punch the fabric through. It's coming. Do a little bit more. There we go. Like that. Make a loop. Grab your 2 ends and put them through the loop, and then you have to pull your fabric back through the hole. And nice and tight. There you go. So now we have a little tie closure that we can use for our binder. And it will have stuff inside of it, so it will be thicker, but that will work for our closure. And like I say, I'll add a pin or a dangly bit. That'll be another prompt for later on. So there's that. I did finish this envelope. I decorated it last night after finishing up the envelope from yesterday. I added on some stickers that I got in my Your Creative Studio as a monthly box that I receive, and these were some of the stickers that were in it, and then this was a little travel ticket that I received from Moya on Instagram. And then I added this little piece of cardstock on the front, and the buttons I added last night. So I'm trying to decide whether to use this as my base, let's see, for around the top, and then this lace on top of that, so like there, like that. I'm just going to take my lace to the other side here, make it easier on myself. There we go. So that will be that look. Or if I should use a piece of this fabric that I've used for the tie closure. I'm just going to lay that down and see how that looks. Actually on that way. And then the lace on top. That might be a little nicer because I have it here and I've used it in the background there, and I've used it for the tie. So I think I'm going to use that as my closure. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim a piece, cut a piece of this trim. Nice piece of tape on it, so we'll get rid of that piece. And I'm going to give myself a little extra and wrap it right around. And then cut it off right about there. Okay, so we'll get that guy out of the way. And him out of the way. And then the same with this piece. I'm going to go with the thicker end, and hopefully it'll go right around to where that little cut was that I found in the fabric. Oh, look at that. It's just big enough. Okay. So we're going to use these pieces across the top. So I'm going to get my Fabri-Tac. And I want to make sure I'm closer to the buttons because I'm going to add another button on top of that. Once I get it on there, I'm going to add another button there as well. So we're going to go ahead and just add some glue and give myself a line to follow. Like that. And then I'm going to take my fabric and I'm going to lay that down. And make sure it's nice and straight. There. And it will eventually seep through the fabric. If you put your fingers down, you'll see it coming through. You want it to do that. You want it to come through the fabric on the top, not seep into the fabric underneath. And then this guy will go on top here like that. So let's finish putting this guy on. Let's glue him around to the other side. And then it's going to go there. So again, we're just going to use a quick line, a bead of glue to get my eye where it's going. And then glue this last little bit here. And you want to make sure you put a lot right on that edge so that it doesn't lift up. Make sure that's nice and even. Like that. And then I'm going to trim that, and I'm just going to put my thumb there and rip that off. Those little trim thingies, perfect. Let go of that. There. So we got our fabric on there. Just gonna pull that little piece of string there. There we go. Then we're going to go back to the front and we're going to glue on our lace right on top of that. So again, we're going to start at one end, and you do a little bit at a time so that it sticks well, or your glue will dry up on you. So let's start a little bit at a time. Get myself right at that edge. And just kind of hold it for a moment, and it will come through the lace. So your fingers are going to get a little gluey. That's a very technical term, of course, gluey. All right. And we'll add this little bit on here. And once we finish up with these, my husband's giving me the evil eye. He wants to go for a walk. It's in the middle of the day, and he was sitting outside, so I thought it was okay to record, but now he wants to go for a walk. So we will get this done, and then I will go for a walk with him. All right, we'll get this last little bit here. And make sure you put a lot on the end so it will hold your piece down. There we go. Nice and smooth, and let's cut that little piece off. And just tack that down. And again, you just want to hold it down for a second so that it seeps into the lace. So there's that part done. We've got our lace on there. Put my lid on my glue. And then I'm going to take my little button here. And I'm just going to grab some quick embroidery floss here. And I don't like to use the whole thickness. I just like to use 3 strands. So let's pull that apart. Put that away. Grab my needles. And let's thread this needle really quickly. And hopefully it won't stick to my fingers because of all the glue that are on my fingers. There we go. Perfect. I'll pull that through. Button. I'm just going to quickly sew a little piece of thread through this. And we'll do it twice, just so you can see it. There we go. So that, I'm just going to tie a knot in the back here. Just one tie, not a real knot, because the knot will make it stick up too far. So there's just a quick tie there. And then I'm just going to trim these little edges off. And then I'm going to take my glue, and I'm going to put a big daub of glue right on top of where I've just tied that little knot so that it will not undo. And we're going to place that on top of our lace. Right there. Put our pin away. Our needle, I mean, not a pin. Just going to move that over a bit. There we go. Put our lid on our... Okay, so the 4 things we were going to do today, just make sure I've done everything I said I was going to do. We added some lace. That was number 9. We added our sari ribbon. Well, this is my cotton ribbon, but that's all I had on hand. We've added a button or 2, and we've added some eyelets. So there are our 4 prompts for today, and that is the binder kind of put together. I'm still trying to decide what I'm going to call the what word I'm going to put in there, but that again can be for later. So I'm just going to tidy up my mess and go for a quick walk on the beach. And tomorrow, we'll see what tomorrow brings. If it's rainy, then I can do a little bit longer one. If it's nice and sunny, I'll be sitting outside. So the weather depends on the prompt. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll hope to see you tomorrow. Bye for now.